Welcome back to Show You Real Estate Today. Paul Jamison here, owner of the Jamison family of real estate companies. That's Jamison Realty, Jamison Property Management, and Jamison Property Investments. Here to serve our clients in any capacity they need, full service in real estate. I'm here with Calvin Armstrong with Norwood, Armstrong, and Stokes. We're talking about who has to sign to buy and sell. And before we go to the LLC portion and we talk about couples, married couples, separated couples, and singles with a girlfriend and how they sign, what is a free trader agreement, Calvin?
So a free trader agreement, we use that to get around the marital interest in property when people are separated. So let's say there's a married couple and one of the spouses has moved out their family residence and they're looking to buy a new property on their own. In North Carolina, we have a 12-month period that the couple has to be separated before they can legally be divorced. So we'll record a free trader agreement, put it on the public record, and it allows both spouses to go out and purchase a property, a new property that they can live in without their soon-to-be ex-spouse having a marital interest in that property. So essentially, if I were separated, I could go out, I could buy my new house for me to live in before my divorce is finalized, and I'd own that independent of my soon-to-be ex-spouse.
Right. Now there's what if there is a free trader agreement in place, and you want to sell it before the couple officially does get divorced? It still is separated, correct?
It's still separate property that your soon-to-be ex-spouse would have no interest or any right to any of the proceeds from that sale, as long as you have that free trader in place prior to when you purchase the property.
Can you set up a free trader agreement and still be married and have it be put in place even if you're not separated, or is that only when you are separated?
It's really only utilized in commonly utilized in a situation where there's a separation and there's soon to be divorced spouses.
I got you. Okay. All right. So what about an LLC then, and you're married? And
so, Paul, as you know, you work with investment properties all the time, and just the convenience factor, what you can do, set up an LLC. It gives you limited liability, so separation of assets, so that you're not exposing everything you own if there were a judgment or something were to happen where there's liability with that business. But if you title it in the LLC, just as a practical matter, it eliminates the need for both spouses to sign at closing, purchase, or sale. It allows one spouse to act on behalf of both, essentially. The one thing within that, the LLCs, you just name one of the spouses a member manager, and they'd be allowed to act on behalf of that LLC.
Right. Right. And, you know, it doesn't preclude it from being a part of the marital assets per se, but it does allow you to trade it according to your notes, right?
That's right. It's more practical during the marriage. But if there were to be a divorce, it would be the assets in that LLC would become part of that divorce proceeding.
Yeah, UFG up for grabs, right?
Right.
So, what is the settlement versus closing and disbursement of money and handing over of keys note?
So
what is your thoughts there?
We get a lot of people, especially when they move here from out of state, as a lot of people are doing. They get really confused. Settlement, that's when we're sitting at the table, we're signing documents, we're going over all the figures associated with the transaction. And then closing is actually when it's recorded, the documents are placed on the public record, the transaction is legally complete. In North Carolina, we do have to record in order for the transaction to be complete. And that's when the funds from the transaction become the sellers, and the buyer then it does in fact own the property. So that's when you're entitled to your keys. So this is a big point of confusion because buyers, when they come into closing, they think once I sign the documents, I own the property, I'm entitled to my keys. And it's not always the case. It takes a couple hours to get recorded. So we like to advise our clients, don't have that moving truck sitting at the house when you come in to sign. There's some things that we have to do to legally complete the transaction. With that being said, a lot of times agents, buyers, sellers, they'll work out an agreement exchanging the keys. If they want us to hold keys until it records, we will. It's just whatever we're advised by the sellers of the transaction.
Yeah, I mean, in some states, you close the transaction and then you don't have to move out yet. I mean, you got like 2 days to move out or something. It's just like,
Right.
how about no?
Right.
I own it, get out. Unless otherwise specified.
Right.
I mean, people come with different expectations of escrow and who does the closings and so on and so forth. So,
right. And then I'm not licensed in South Carolina, but our South Carolina attorneys, they've told us that in South Carolina you can hand the keys over at the table.
that's right.
That's
right.
just a
As
couple
soon as
miles
it's
down the
signed
road.
and funded, you get your keys. It's yours.
Yep. Yep.
That's a huge difference for such a short distance.
Right.
Yeah. So what are the top 5 issues that you have with title and the most common deal breakers you see?
So there's 5 key ones here. The first one is tax liens, both from the federal government and the IRS, and then North Carolina Department of Revenue. These are time consuming to get. As many people know, working with the IRS can be difficult. On our side, it's hard just to get somebody on the phone, and they can drag on the transaction for a long time, or they can kill the transaction depending on the amount. So the earlier we find out about these, the better. It really just helps us to work through them. And
I'm just surprised that people say they don't know.
it happens all the time, and it has their social security number right on it. And they'll still try to say it's not them. You see it all the time. One of the next top 5 deal breakers we see is our mobile homes. With mobile homes, they can be titled, so they can be property that's movable that can go down the road. They're titled with the DMV, but they can also be converted to real estate, which is necessary for our real estate transactions. So it's just important that we get that information up front, because instead of working with the IRS or Department of Revenue, we're now working with the DMV, which can make things a little bit more difficult and time consuming.
So yeah, think.
Right.
Oh my gosh. I mean, yeah, that's true. So what else do we have?
Another thing we see is a prior owner's deed of trust. In layman's terms, a deed of trust is a mortgage on the property. So the most common example of that is a prior owner, maybe 1, 2, 3 owners ago, had an equity line on the property. It was paid off, but it was never closed out. And that's a big issue, because it's an open line of credit that people could go draw on. And that there's some additional hoops to jump through with the lenders to get those cleared out. So that's
I
a
see
big
that
issue.
about 1 out of 5 times.
It's
Don't
very
you?
common. Yeah, especially with the equity lines, because the banks don't want to close them out because it's an additional account they have. And so if they're not given proper notice to close them out, they don't. And we have to close them out before we can close the new transaction.
That's just crazy, because I see it all the time.
Right.
I mean, I did a transaction I see it 2 to 3 times a month.
Right. It's common.
Trying
It's
to dig up
all the
account
time.
numbers. Where it's really hard is that the bank's not in business anymore, or the bank has been merged with another bank. So you got a First Union,
Right.
Old HELOC or home equity line, or you got one from, Kalamazoo Bank that isn't even in existence anymore, Community One, or one of those bad boy Bank of Granite. They don't exist.
Right. There is a 30-day cancellation statute in North Carolina that we can utilize, but that takes a minimum of 30 days and often takes longer depending on how it plays out. So again, it's important for people to let us know about these issues up front, so we can start that clock and hopefully keep the closing on track.
Right. What about appraisals, and then we'll go to break.
So we were seeing it a lot when things were really crazy, 6 months to a year ago. when the bidding wars were taking place and appraisal would come in low. People were overbidding on the house, but they'd pay the difference to get the property they wanted. Now, if appraisals are coming in low, a lot of times the buyers are backing out. We don't see it often, but it does happen. So it's important to talk to real estate professionals as a buyer to make sure you know what a good bid on this property is up front, so that you're not stuck paying the difference in that appraisal or backing out of the transaction.
Absolutely. You want to make sure. All right. After the break, we'll cover due diligence. That's going to be interesting to hear about. And we've got a lot more to share with you. I'm here with Calvin Armstrong, Norwood, Armstrong, and Stokes, myself, Paul Jamison. Lots to go. The show your real estate today here on News Talk 1110 993 WVT.